What does this bank and the notorious bank robber John Dillinger have in common? If you like history, this one's for you. T. Hello, Silver fans. This is T, and you're in the place to be for Silver education, acquisition, and entertainment. Hey, just a little reminder here at the top of the video to hit that like button. And if you're new to my channel and you like what you see, please subscribe. So how about some history today? I grew up in a town in northwest Indiana, just in the shadow of Chicago, Illinois, called East Chicago, Indiana. And East Chicago has a rich history of great people. There have been wave after wave of immigrant to come through East Chicago. There were the Poles, there were the Greeks, and now the Latin Americans and African Americans, all coming through East Chicago back in the day, mainly to work at the mills and the oil refineries in this industrial part of Indiana on the shores of Lake Michigan. But I want to tell you a little bit about one of East Chicago's claims to fame that is somewhat of a black mark in the history of the town or the city of East Chicago, and that is a bank robbery. A very famous bank robbery happened where I grew up in East Chicago way back many years ago. The bank robbery was committed by none other than John Dillinger himself. Now, most of you probably know a little bit about John Dillinger. Maybe you saw the movie. He is notorious for his long string of bank robberies throughout the Midwest, and he's even known to have robbed several police stations. Just incredible moxie and boldness from this man in the 20s and 30s. And there's a connection between John Dillinger and this bank right here. I'm going to get to that in just a moment. But what I'm about to show you is absolutely incredible. It's T the Silver Stacker family history. I am going to show you a video that I shot about 12 years ago when my grandmother was still alive. She was getting up there in age. And so I decided one Easter, while we were all just after our meal, we were gathered, and I said, you know what, let's just put a video camera on Grandma and Aunt Flo and let them tell one of their stories. And boy, these ladies had lots of stories. My grandmother at the time was 90 years old, and she and my Aunt Flo told the story of when they were little girls and they witnessed John Dillinger rob a bank. So without any further ado, I am just going to cut to that story, and then after that I will tell you all about this bank and the connection between that bank and this bank right here. So stay tuned, enjoy.
All right, we're going to ask you some questions about John Dillinger, but we want to start by hearing about you. So why don't you state for the camera your names and your ages.
Okay, my name is Florence Liss, and I'm 78 years old.
My name is Mary Lipton, and I'm 90 years old.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, we want to hear about what you saw that fateful day in East Chicago, Indiana, with John Dillinger.
Well, I seen John Dillinger, John in it, robbed the bank. I seen him going into the bank. He went in the bank first. Then he had two guys with him, one on each side of the door. And they had machine guns. And one of the guys killed a detective. I think he was a detective. His name was O'Malley. And then they ran out of the bank. Dillinger ran first, and the car was waiting for him. A convertible was waiting for him. So he got in first. And the other two guys by the door got in the back, and they were sitting in the back.
Grandma, where were you in relation to what was happening at the bank? Where were you at the time?
Oh, I was at the J.J. Newberry dime store. It was right next door to the bank, in the same building, just a wall in between. And while we were in the dime store, they announced at the intercom that there's a robbery at the bank, so we knew about it. So they went and locked the doors at the dime store, And there's one woman that worked over, tall blonde. She fainted when they shot that guy. When they shot O'Malley, she fainted.
Did you actually see him shoot O'Malley?
Yes. Yes.
And O'Malley, you said earlier that he fell down on his back or something like that?
Yeah, on his back. Yeah.
How did other people react at the time? What did you do when they made the announcement?
Well, we were all scared. You know what I mean? Because we knew what was happening. Yeah? So everybody that was in the dime store was standing by the door and watching. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So people actually gathered around and watched the scene unfold. Aunt Flo, do you remember the incident?
Well, I was only 4 years old when it happened. All I remember was I knew that the bank was being robbed, and I heard a lot of gunshots. So I hid behind her. So I really didn't see that much. But until this day, I do not want to be around any guns, loaded or unloaded. So that's all I remember, because I was only 4.
Oh, okay, continue.
That's it.
So when Dillinger ran out of the bank, he had 2 sacks of money, 2 bags or 2 sacks, whatever you want to call it, one in each hand. And then he went and he was set by the driver. The driver drove away, and they went somewhere. I don't think on Chicago Avenue.
Yeah, that's Chicago.
Yeah, and they went on Chicago Avenue.
Okay.
The guy was really driving real fast.
So you saw the getaway.
You could get away, yeah.
Yeah. Now, were there police officers there in the area?
There was police officers in the building across, directly across the street from the bank, upstairs.
It was a Carnation Bakery.
Bakery, yeah. I don't know if they had storage there or if people lived over there. And none of them would come out. Everybody was mad. Everybody was talking about it, that they should have came and helped this guy that got killed.
So the community was mad that the officers didn't come and assist there.
Then after they got away and everything, then all them cops came over there after that, but that was too late already to help anybody out.
The question for both of you guys: How did the community respond to John Dillinger being in the area? Was everyone talking about it? Or?
I think they were really surprised that he would rob something like in East Chicago, because we're a small town compared to the other big banks. But of course they probably had a lot of money in the bank, because Inland Steel and Youngstown and Sinclair and all those companies were pretty, prominent at that time, and they were all going
steel
real
companies
well.
and
Yeah,
oil
steel
companies?
companies, yeah. So they probably did have a lot of money in there.
And my dad played with Dillinger. He played cards on Laguna Avenue across the street from the A&P store. And he said he was an honest guy. He wouldn't cheat anybody by a penny. They asked him, how come he robs? And he said, well, I don't rob the poor, I rob the rich. That's what he told me. But he was honest. He was a real nice guy. My dad liked him. He played cards with him many times.
Oh, really?
So how did you get home? What happened? What was in the aftermath of the robbery? What happened?
Well, I guess we just walked home like we ordinarily did. But it took us a while to get out of the dime store. They didn't let us out right away until after all the stuff was over. Because they didn't probably know whether there were any more armed people there or not.
Were you all excited? Did you run home and tell everyone, the whole
We
family?
were nervous.
I was scared. I was still hanging on to her like crazy.
Yeah, I was scared too. But
And didn't the police officers come and interview you or ask anybody questions or anything like that?
no questions was asked.
I don't remember any police coming even into the dime store.
So were everyday people, like in your family and stuff, were they scared of Dillinger? Or it kind of sounds like, because part of what we hear now by historians is that he was kind of a hero.
See, according to what she said, our dad liked him.
Yeah, he liked him.
And I don't think he would harm an ordinary citizen for no reason at all.
I don't know if that's the first time he robbed a bank or I don't know.
I remember hearing stories of him, helping out people in the community, that were down on their luck and things like that. Is there any truth to that?
I don't know.
Not that we know of. I never heard
I
that.
never heard
Okay.
of it either.
He's got sort of a Robin Hood image, and
Yes.
But my dad always said he was a good man. He couldn't say nothing against him.
And he didn't like cheaters.
Yeah.
He did not like to cheat, anybody to cheat.
What, cards you mean?
Yeah, he was an honest card player anyway, and so was everybody else. Probably out of necessity.
All right, ladies. Well, thanks for sharing your stories with us. It was really fascinating.
Thank you for
I
asking.
hope we told everything.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I don't remember that much, but
All right. Well, thank you.
you're welcome. Now you're going to run that now?
Well, in preparation for this video, I watched that video of my grandma who passed away a few years ago, and I watched it multiple times. I sure do miss that lady. She had a lot of spunk, and she lived through some amazing times in history, I can tell you that. But what a story recited by a 90-year-old woman and her little sister. I think they probably got most of the facts right after all that time, had passed from what they experienced till the time that video was shot. But either way, you can tell, even all those years later, the emotion in which they conveyed that story is just incredible. A piece of history there. Now, talking about history, let's talk a little bit about the bank that was robbed. The First National Bank of East Chicago. That bank was still standing when I was a little kid. As a matter of fact, I remember going in that bank many times with my father as he did business there, and it was just an amazingly beautiful building. Even as a 11 or 12-year-old kid, I had an appreciation of it back then. It was like walking into a museum or something like that. Marble floors throughout, the teller windows, everything was just so elaborate and beautiful. And to my grandma's point, or my Aunt Flo's point, I'm sure a lot of the major companies in that area did their banking there. East Chicago is part of what is now called the Rust Belt. But back in the day, the industries were booming, and so were the banks, and they built one of the most beautiful banks I'd ever seen there in East Chicago. But anyway, eventually it was torn down, unfortunately, and a Walgreens was put up there. I know a lot of people in the community were very upset by that because of such a treasure that building was. But that's kind of besides the point. I do remember going to that bank, and I do remember receiving this bank right here as a gift from my Aunt Jean. My Aunt Jean had worked at that bank for a period of time, and this is one of probably hundreds of banks, small banks just like it, that were present there. She gave me this when I was just a little guy, probably of around 8 or 9 years old. Unfortunately, you know how dumb 8 and 9-year-olds can be. It was in good shape, and it said prominently First National Bank of East Chicago, Indiana. And, I probably put some baseball stickers on it, some garbage pail stickers, who knows, but that text is no longer there. But I still have this bank, and matter of fact, you know me as T the Silver Stacker, but of course as a kid, most of us that are into stacking collected coins back in the day. So I'm going to empty this in just a little while. And see, I probably have a bunch of wheat pennies and other little junk in here. I'm going to repurpose this bank in just a little while. But just imagine when this bank and the thousands just like it was in use at that bank. And the reason she gave it to me is because they were discontinuing the use of these type of banks. But when they were in use, just imagine, perhaps it was filled with some little old lady's 50-cent pieces that she had been hoarding and saving up, maybe to send back to the old country of Poland or what have you, to send that, or perhaps it was filled up with coins just like this that belonged to some executive at Inland Steel in its heyday, and perhaps this bank was filled to the top with coins such as this. No one will ever know at this point, but I certainly like to use my imagination. Either way, this bank was in that bank and used for some purpose, and how fascinating that is to consider that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move these coins here, and I'm going to open this bank up, And this is not the original lock. I long ago lost the original lock, but I was smart enough to find this little lock. Who knows where I got it back in the day. But let's see if we can open that up. This is how these banks work. I'll show you. This pin goes through, and maybe some of you who are watching this have seen banks like this before. Opens up like that and like that. And here you go. Here are the contents of this bank. Who knows why I collected whatever coins that are in here. Maybe they were just interesting to me. A lot of wheat pennies. I know over the years I've collected lots and lots of wheat pennies. And who knows, you know, I don't know much about wheat pennies. I suppose I can go and find out what years. There's a 1935 there. 1958. What years are the key years to find? It might be some war nickels in here. Let's see. This one is 1943. And so it doesn't look like anything too incredibly valuable. But nonetheless, I will put these away. I am going to... Oh, wow. Here's a neat one. I definitely used to collect these buffaloes when I was a kid. And as I mentioned in a previous video, my mom used to be a cashier in East Chicago at a supermarket. And whenever things like this buffalo nickel would come in, she knew how much I loved coin collecting, even as a youngster. And she would trade them out of her till. She'd put in a nickel and take out the buffalo nickel and bring it home to me. And some days after work, she'd have nothing, and other days she'd have, you know, 35 or 45 cents worth of interesting coins to give me. So anyway, I am going to put these coins away. So I'll click off, and I'll come right back and let you know what my new purpose for this particular bank is going to be. Okay, so hey, I am back. I've put all those war nickels and pennies and a couple other little odds and ends that I found in there that I collected as a kid. And I'll have to look through those another time and see if there's anything valuable in there. But for now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to place this particular coin. Actually, it's a round. It was sent to me by one of my viewers who appreciated me enough to send that to me. So this, see, it has a spring there. That silver round is going to have a new home, and right there, and I will treasure that. I certainly do appreciate that person taking the time to send me that item. I thought it was very thoughtful. And so that's where this silver round is going to be kept, in a place where it is cherished and appreciated there. And hey, talking about appreciation, I appreciate you watching my videos. I hope you enjoyed the history today, and maybe that inspires you to learn a little bit more about John Dillinger and his famous bank robbery in East Chicago, Indiana. But either way, like I said, I appreciate you watching. And this video is a little different than my normal ones, but my constant wish for you when it comes to silver stacking is this: may your premiums be low and your stacks be high. T.